Hey everyone, what is going on? It is Crypto Bobby. Hope you are having a great day, great night, wherever you might be watching in from. Wanted to pop in here for a little bit of a morning edition of Crypto Happy Hour. So I'm definitely not drinking any alcohol at all. I'm out in San Francisco right now for a conference. It is, I don't know, 7:30 a.m. or something like that. I'm still on New York time, but out in San Francisco and out for a conference, actually the LendIt conference. So if you're here for LendIt, let me know. Would love to meet up, grab a coffee, grab a beer at some point in time. Wanted to pop in here real quick though before I head over to the conference and talk a little bit about what is happening in the market today. We have a nice little bit of a Monday morning drop, which has been, I'm sure, a lot of fun for everybody. Finally seemed like we were getting some damn momentum when it came to, let's see here. Need to get the actual chat on my phone. What's going on? Miguel, what is up? Steve, Dominic, Chris, hope you guys are having a good one so far. If you just joined, hit that like button. Helps to get this video out to as many people as possible. Would really, really appreciate that if you could hit that like button, smash that like button, whatever the hell you want to call it. But yeah, want to just pop in here, talk a little bit about what has been happening in the marketplace as a whole. Obviously, Bitcoin down nicely this morning. I woke up and it was kind of finally feeling like over the past couple days, Bitcoin was Bitcoin and the overall markets were gaining some momentum, and I was somewhat getting, I was happy about that for sure. But I didn't really want to come out and say like, oh yeah, we're bull market's back, baby, because it's obviously not. We're still nowhere near that, and I think that was something that I was looking at and thinking, you know what, I'm gonna hold off on any excitement. I'm not gonna get ahead of myself, and it's a good thing because when I woke up this morning, obviously we can see what the hell is going on. My maids are about to come in the hotel room, so this will be awkward. Um, but yeah, I mean it's been interesting. I'll pop over to Onchain FX. One of the things that was also fairly, I thought, interesting as well is that Bitcoin dropping a little bit harder than ETH, Bitcoin dropping harder than Ripple. A good amount of the kind of altcoins or the other tokens out there have actually performed better than Bitcoin in the past 24 hours. Whether it's been Neo, Cardano, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, they've actually been leading Bitcoin, although most of them are all still down regardless of kind of where things are at this point in time. Taking a look at some of the questions, some of the comments here, and one thing I'll also pop through too. So yesterday on my flight out to San Francisco, told some of you guys that I got a chance, or I downloaded the Zilliqa white paper, the Ravencoin white paper, and the Ontology white paper. I got a chance to read through all three of them on the plane yesterday. There was actually the United Wi-Fi was broken, which was awesome. So literally all I could do is read the PDFs that I downloaded. I couldn't. Can you come back later? Is that cool? But so yeah, read the Zilliqa white paper, read through the Ravencoin white paper, and then the Ontology white paper. And I thought Ravencoin was pretty interesting. It's pretty straightforward if you're interested in checking that one out, especially if you're like new to the space. Ravencoin, I think, makes a lot more sense than most things do for many people. It's pretty straightforward. Essentially, it's basically a Bitcoin fork, which is supposed to allow for easier creation and transfer of assets on the blockchain. And it's also a mineable, or it's more mineable. It's supposed to be ASIC resistant through the X16R algorithm. And it's a pretty low cap market coin. Bruce Fenton is one of the main guys behind it. And then Patrick Byrne from Overstock.com is behind it. I personally don't own any. I think it's only available on CryptoBridge right now, but I'm going to dive into it even a little bit further. I think it might be one that might be checking out, or even maybe trying to mine at some point in time. So that should be interesting. And then on the other side of the house, I thought Zilliqa was pretty solid. I have a little bit of questions in regards to Zilliqa on, I guess, the viability of sharding. I think, if you're investing in Zilliqa, if you're looking at Zilliqa, then you're basically making a large scale bet on sharding as a scalability solution. and that Zilliqa has sharding built into the product, whereas Ethereum right now is trying to develop that into Ethereum in the future. Zilliqa is already built in with that today. There's a couple things I think from the actual like consensus mechanism. I think they're using probable Byzantine fault tolerance, PBFT, as opposed to some of the other kind of consensus mechanisms that people are using. I don't have the technical knowledge to know how legitimate that is in comparison to some other things. So if you guys have thoughts, would love to hear kind of how you think about some of those some of those things. But Zilliqa is pretty interesting to me as well. I think worth, if you're interested in something like that, worth a deep dive from an alternative to, if you're looking at like if you're looking at the the Ethereums of the world, or if you're looking at the Cardanos or the Neos, check out Zilliqa from a scalability standpoint. It's one of those competitors. I don't own any, but I think just upon reading the white paper, it is worth a look. And then Ontology was the last one that I dove into, and Ontology was one that I thought was maybe a little bit hard. It was harder to grasp for me. They're trying to do so many different things. It was harder to wrap my mind around it. Like Ravencoin is pretty straightforward. ASIC resistant, Bitcoin somewhat alternative that allows you to easily create assets. Zilliqa is supposed to be a decentralized platform that solves scalability issues of Ethereum and of some of these other ones with sharding already implemented into the platform. Ontology was a lot broader in scope, and I need to dive into Ontology a little bit more. Obviously, Ontology has performed really well from a price standpoint, but from like a fundamental analysis standpoint for me, it was a little bit more difficult to get a real solid feel for. So popping into some of these questions here. What's up? It's Carlos Matos from New York. What do we got? Yes, I did just say sharting. Sithu, sorry man, I missed your donation. I'm not sure. Might have missed that, man. I'll have to go back if I missed it, Sithu. I'm sorry about that. Doing the chat on my phone, so if you could just re-put that in there, man. Apologies on that. If you guys have any specific questions as well, would love to hear them, love to take them as much as possible at this point in time. Definitely want to answer some questions, have a good time before I head off to this, before I head off to the conference this afternoon, or this afternoon, in an hour or so. Get there, get the badge, and all that good stuff. Greg Twist, do you think Bitcoin will reach its all-time high again this year? Many thanks. I personally do. I think that it could certainly take months and months. Like, I don't think we're just going to all of a sudden next week hit a $20,000 Bitcoin again. But I do personally think that with the developments and with the large money coming into the space and with the amount of infrastructure that's being built, I mean, I'm having conversations with really interesting companies that are building the infrastructure that is required, with the infrastructure that is required for these large scale investors to actually be investing in the space. So I think that the infrastructure and the custodianship and a lot of the things aren't there yet for some of the larger scale money to move in. But I think, large companies are, whether it's high frequency trading firms, whether it's the big larger investors. You saw the stuff about Venrock, which is kind of part of Rockefeller's, the Rockefeller family's, basically their VC firm. That's something that they're starting. Soros, all these other, kind of larger investors who might be going long, might be going short, who knows? But there is large scale money coming into the space. When you look at the size of the market right now, it's tiny in comparison to so many other asset classes. So I do remain positive on Bitcoin and a lot of other things there. A lot of other things going on. Cuban crypto, how are things looking from an SEC standpoint? How much regulations are we in for? I have, to be pretty frank, I have no idea. I think that the SEC has been slow. Like they've put out negative, let's say they put out negative commentary on a lot of ICOs or on a lot of initial coin offerings. They put out positive commentary for the most part, kind of on Bitcoin. They put out positive commentary on blockchain technology, distributed ledger technology, whatever you want to call it. So that is, that's definitely something that I think, you want to. I don't know. I think the SEC only has so much manpower, and they're going to go after the obvious frauds first. They're going to go after the BitConnects. They're going to go after the Centras. They're going to go after the obvious crappy projects first, and then they might migrate their way up. I don't think they're just going to throw a wet blanket on the entire industry as a whole. Tech Rage, what's up, man? Appreciate that super chat. Thank you very much. View of Polyswarm only worth 20% of what people paid in the ICO. Massive post for the early investors. I like Polyswarm. I think that there's probably a lack of liquidity right now. I think it's just traded on HitBTC. Let's see here. It's not even on CoinMarketCap. I like Polyswarm. I've met the team behind them. I know Steve, the CEO. So I think they ICO'd at a rough time. Anybody ICOing right now in this bear market, anybody doing anything in this kind of bear market right now is in for a rough time, I think. So that's unfortunate for a lot of people. But I think sometimes you're just of coming to the market at the wrong time, and timing is everything right now in the crypto world. There are a lot of crappy projects that ICO'd in maybe, let's say, August of last year, September, October, and they're still crushing it. You have Dentacoin with $100 million market cap or something like that. Is Dentacoin really worth $100 million? Dentists on the blockchain? Probably not. So looking at some of these questions here. I am Craig. This is my BitConnect wallet. Yes, this is my Bitcoin wallet. Dwayne Harris, don't you feel like shit you traded your job at the worst possible time? I still have a full-time job, so I work, like I said, I work at AirSwap, so I still have a full-time job. I don't regret leaving my job at a Fortune 500 company whatsoever. It's not always going to be a bull market in crypto, and to say, hey, I'm only gonna leave my job when it's a bull market, that's stupid. I'm personally confident. For the time being, I'm essentially betting my career on the space, and I'm happy to do that. I'm confident. Everybody is like saying all this stuff about, oh, you're an idiot, or there's all these people out there. I'm sure a lot of you guys watching probably aren't like this, but there's a good amount of people now that are always commenting saying, oh, this market's going to zero, you guys are stupid, what are you doing, blah blah blah. Number one, why are you commenting on these videos? Go get a life, who gives a shit. Number two, I'm confident in this industry, and that's why I'm working in it full time, and that's why I'm doing all the things that I'm doing, and I really enjoy doing it, and I'm passionate about it. And maybe you don't have that feeling, but I do, and I'm excited about. I wake up every day and I'm excited about doing what I do. So it's fun for me. Maybe it wouldn't be for you, but I'm all in, man. Paul Lindsay, what's up, brother? Appreciate it. Hope you're having a good one. Charlotte and Lucy show. Have you heard of LoyalCoin? They are in the retail loyalty space and looking to revolutionize retail loyalty. I have not heard of LoyalCoin. I don't know if are they traded yet? No. So there's a lot of companies kind of doing that. To be honest, and I'm not like the biggest fan of this I think they're executing nicely, but I don't think that I don't know necessarily if like they are perhaps retail maybe with crypto doesn't necessarily excite me as a lot of other things. Retail doesn't necessarily excite me as much as a lot of other things, but if you're looking at that, like LoyalCoin, I think Nucleus Vision is probably, again, it's not like the vertical in crypto that I'm most excited about, but Nucleus Vision seems like they have a decent product when it comes down to loyalty and kind of incentivizing companies. So if you're looking at LoyalCoin, I don't know specifically about the kind of necessity of that, but I would check out Nucleus Vision as well, Encash. That seems like one that's doing pretty solid. Somebody said day off, so no, I'm actually out in San Francisco right now. It's 7:45 in the morning right now out here. I'm going to the LendIt conference. They're actually, interestingly enough, I'll pull this up here. So I went to LendIt at my old job a year ago. About a year ago. It's a fintech conference. But it's kind of funny because about a year ago or so, I went to this one, and there was very minimal mention of cryptocurrency, very minimal mention of blockchain technology. And this year, they actually have an entire track on blockchain technology. There is an entire kind of portion of it that they're calling BlockFin, so there's an entire portion of it that they're calling BlockFin, which is supposed to be blockchain and financial services. But yeah, there's some pretty solid speakers. In terms of, we'll pop down here. I mean, I'm excited to hear from some of these folks. So they have what do we got here? Somebody from Kraken, Blockchain Capital, Hyperledger, Balance, Omega One, Block Tower, Tezos, really all over the place. Gigawatt, WanChain. They have some good speakers here for sure. So I'm excited to Dfinity, Numerai, kind of all over the board. So excited to hear Tim Draper. Fun fact, I was on a flight coming back from San Francisco last week. Tim Draper was on the flight, so that was interesting. He was wearing a Bitcoin tie, so he's always representing. Shout out to Tim Draper wearing a Bitcoin tie on a flight back from San Francisco to New York. Somebody mentioned, am I going to the blockchain fair in Berkeley on the 18th? No, I'll be coming back from Dubai that day. Nope. And if you guys are enjoying this video, definitely hit that thumbs up. Would really appreciate that. Try to get to as many questions here as I possibly can. But yeah, hit the thumbs up button, hit the like button. That'd be fantastic. What is your view on XRP and its current low price? Do you think it will rise, and if so, when? I'm not the biggest Ripple fan in the world. Ripple's gotten worked pretty good in comparison to a lot of the other assets out there. I mean, granted, there's some other ones that have gotten hit pretty hard. Zcash has gotten worked. Tron obviously has gotten worked. Cardano has gotten equally worked, if not more so. Yeah, Cardano's actually gotten hit harder than Ripple, but yeah, Ripple's one of those that's down about 87% from its all-time high. I personally think Ripple is just massively overextended. I mean, I think there was a point in time where Ripple was a $100 billion market cap. That's just not realistic. It wasn't. It was just way overextended. I mean, you're still talking about Ripple being worth $18 billion from a market capitalization perspective. So I don't think, we're not talking about, we're not talking about like Ripple being inexpensive. It's still very expensive, in my opinion. I think it's probably overvalued still at this point. That's just my personal opinion, though. And then there's other, opinions in terms of just the actual necessity of the XRP token and a lot of other things around that I won't really get into too much. AO Crypto, are you bullish on ZIL? I need to do a little bit more research. I want to personally, I'd like to talk to a couple people on Zilliqa, just as far as like the technicals behind it. I think it's in testnet right now. I think it's something that I would consider to put some money behind personally. I liked what the white paper had to offer, but like I said before, I'm not, if maybe you were on maybe you were on this, maybe you weren't previously, but I think that I want to learn a little bit more specifically about really how effective sharding is in terms of scalability, and if that is something that can really kind of extend the usability of the services that Zilliqa can provide. I think obviously the fact that Ethereum trying to implement something similar into their platform is a good sign, and the fact that it's already built in with Zilliqa really helps to accelerate that process. But I'd like to hear a little bit more from somebody in terms of just like how they come to consensus and a lot of other things like that. So, but it's something I'm certainly considering. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily bullish on it, but I'd want to do some more due diligence. But it is something between Zilliqa and Ravencoin, I would consider adding both to my portfolio. The Paul D, what are your thoughts on Chainlink? So I like Chainlink. I don't have any Chainlink in my portfolio, but I do like Chainlink quite a bit. I know they're well respected, just in terms of the interactions that I've had in like the crypto blockchain industry. I think they're a well respected team. There seem to be a lot of people that potentially are looking to Chainlink for their Oracle services. So I do think that they are a well-respected team, and I think they provide they're going to provide, and maybe it's a little bit early on, but I do think that the ability to connect to the ability to connect to outside services, outside data, outside information is going to be really important. Having the ability to connect APIs to whatever blockchain technology you might be leveraging, I think that is really important. So I think Chainlink is filling, or will fill, a very interesting need in the long term. I have a shitload of chain links in my fence at home. Don't we all? Seems like you favor a lot of shitcoin projects. Well, define shitcoin. Define shitcoin. So taking a look at some of these questions here as well. The manipulation is so obvious. Yeah, I mean, it is, but that's also what you get when you're in basically a fully unregulated industry. It's certainly a lot easier to manipulate these cryptocurrency markets than it is to manipulate existing markets that have that have a large degree of regulation or restrictions associated with them. There really isn't any right now. They're coming, but manipulation works in both ways too. Everybody loved cryptocurrency and loved the market when Bitcoin went from $3,000 to $20,000 over the course of a month or two. Nobody was crying about manipulation then, but when Bitcoin drops, $500, 10%, 20%, 30%, whatever it is, everybody's like, "Oh my God, these markets are so manipulated. This is BS. This is BS." It works both ways. And you can probably profit off of it both ways if you know what you're doing. So I think obviously they're very illiquid markets right now, and I think that's something you have to consider when you look at things in the long run. When son. And one thing I'll also say too is it's kind of funny because everybody. I tweeted about this a little bit last night, but if you guys aren't familiar, there's a lawsuit going on, and this is going to be interesting to see how it pans out. But so I tweeted about this last night. What do we got here? There's a class action lawsuit that's getting filed against Nano. So formerly Ryblox, now Nano. There's a class action lawsuit that's getting filed. If you guys aren't familiar, with what's going on, basically BitGrail, which was an exchange, got hacked for a bunch of Nano cryptocurrency. And the people at BitGrail, or that had their money on BitGrail, basically lost their Nano. They were holding on an exchange, lost their Nano, wasn't good. BitGrail team tried to talk to the Nano developers and say like, hey, let's do a hard fork and let's just like eliminate the Nano that was stolen. Let's reimburse everybody. And the devs were like, no, we're not doing that. Too bad. And so now there is a lawsuit going against the team at Nano. But the thing is, it didn't have anything to do with the Nano. Didn't have anything to do with the Nano protocol or the Nano really developers at all. It was due to incompetency at BitGrail. However, now the argument is that the Nano team had talked. This happened, I think, in early February. The Nano team had talked to, or had tweeted about BitGrail having issues and saying, hey, everything's good with BitGrail, everything's fine. So now Nano is getting sued in a class action lawsuit. I don't exactly know. I guess there's like the developers behind it and the foundation behind it or whatever it might be. But I think it's a really interesting point because everybody always like wants to talk about like decentralization, like decentralize this, decentralize that, blah, 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 blah. And then you lose some money and then you're running to a law firm filing a class action lawsuit because you kept your money on a shady exchange. Granted, did Nano perhaps say, hey, it's okay to use this exchange? Yeah, I think they did. But I guess it doesn't change the fact. So it's I'm not a fan of the lawsuit. I think it goes against a lot of the points of like decent, like it's basically akin to, let's just say, let's say for whatever reason you have Bitcoin, Coinbase gets hacked. Coinbase gets hacked, you lose some Bitcoin, and then you sue Bitcoin. Like you sue the developers behind Bitcoin and the Bitcoin Foundation. Kind of the same thing. And then the reason because you did that is because the Bitcoin Foundation said, hey, you guys can use Coinbase. It's all right. So it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out. I don't like to see the class action lawsuits in the space, to be honest with you. Maybe outside of outside of BitConnect, I don't like seeing these lawsuits every time something bad happens or every time somebody gets their feathers ruffled. They're running and suing everybody in the world. Maybe that's just me, but also scares the hell out of me. So. So Pablo says, "How is a coin liable for a crap exchange?" That's the point. I think that's definitely the point of interest. Is are they really liable because an exchange was incompetent and couldn't figure out their own stuff? That's the big point. And then people are saying, well, Nano tweeted. Nano essentially, it was like the only exchange where you really could acquire Nano at certain points in times. So that was one of the reasons that people are saying, well, hey, they led people to this path. They led people to BitGrail, so now they're liable for that, which I guess is potentially valid. But at the same point in time, I still don't like it. I don't like it. But that's me. Maybe if I lost all my money on I've never owned one Nano. I've never bought one Nano, but that's something I think you definitely want to think about. So taking a look at some of the Mainframe 386, Ripple and Stellar are the only platforms being actively implemented by big business and banks, but Crypto Bobby would rather buy Verge. That's funny because I've never bought Verge in my life, and I call Verge Dogecoin dark. But you wouldn't know that because you don't follow me, and you wouldn't know that at all. But continue on talking about XRP the standard. Here's to you. If you like Ripple, if you like Stellar, fantastic. Buy Ripple, buy Stellar, do what you want to do. I'm not your mommy, I'm not your daddy, but don't say I like Verge or start talking that because I don't really like Dogecoin Dark, but that's just me. I love when people talk dumb stuff, though. Thank you. The Paul 3D. Good question, man. Do you think it's better to invest in more general projects like platforms, Oracle providers, instead of really specific projects like Dentis on the blockchain, aka Dentacoin? I think there is some validity right now to investing in these like larger the platform plays have typically, at least from like an ICO perspective, they've performed a lot better than some of these more like very specific use cases. Like anybody that's like, oh, we have a platform and it's maybe better than Ethereum or it's maybe not. That's typically done pretty well, and they have a very high valuation because it's hard to put a valuation on that. Some of the decentralized apps, the D apps, or the very specific use cases don't do as well that I've seen. But just past historical performance doesn't necessarily predict future returns as well. So something you have to consider there too. What's up with the Monero hard fork? Did Binance support Monero looting? So I'm seeing some questions there. I don't have a good article I could pull up yet. Let's see. Maybe I could just find one real quick. Monero hash power. There'll be some articles on this. Maybe not. News. Full Monero hard fork. So days ago. So basically, what happened? If you weren't paying full attention, I haven't gone totally in depth on this yet, but I do have a pretty decent sized holding of Monero, so I should really do a little bit more research on it. But essentially, what happened? So Monero, some of the companies out there, Monero or Bitmain, excuse me, was developing I believe it was Bitmain was developing an ASIC miner for Monero. If you're not familiar with what an ASIC miner is, it's an application specific. It's basically a computer that can only do one thing, and it's mining. and they are extremely highly efficient miners. So traditionally, when you used to be able to mine on Bitcoin, you could use when Bitcoin started off, and a lot of these other cryptocurrencies started off, but when Bitcoin started off, you could actually use a CPU on your computer to mine Bitcoin, and that was effective. And then somebody figured out, well, hey, actually GPUs, or the graphical processing units, can actually mine a lot more efficiently. And then people started using GPUs, and then they transitioned to I believe it's FGPUs at one point in time. And then there was a point in time where somebody said, hey, why are we using GPUs? Let's develop a specific, an ASIC, or a very specific, it's essentially a specific computer to just mine Bitcoin. And so that's been developed. Bitmain is the largest provider out there, and because they've developed ASICs, it is rendered mining with a CPU or mining Bitcoin with a GPU completely worthless. So the same thing essentially was happening with Monero, where the same thing which was happening with Monero is you could mine, I believe, I think it's a CPU, GPU combination. I'm not exactly sure. I've never mined Monero before, but there weren't ASICs in existence yet, and you could mine. And the Monero team said, hey, we don't want Bitmain to develop these ASICs and monopolize mining for Monero, so we're going to hard fork the code of Monero so that it renders these ASICs that Bitmain has produced essentially useless. And that's what they did. And because of that, they forked off, and there were a number of basically alternative Monero projects that came to life out of that: Monero Zero, Monero Classic, Monero Original, and Monero Dash Classic. So, and that the purpose of that was to kind of continue the mining hash power. So a couple different things that people pointed to was, number one, that the hash rate of real Monero, or like the actual Monero, dropped about 80%. So there was 80% less hashing power, I believe, behind Monero. So there were a couple different points. It's yet to be determined fully really what happened, and I think that'll come to light. But there are some people that believed that there were already ASICs mining Monero, and now that there were ASICs mining Monero, they left to mine something else, essentially, or they migrated to some of these other Monero versions where they could be more effective in terms of mining. So it's really going to be interesting to see how this plays out, and I think this is going to happen more and more often, where there are going to be Bitmain or some of these other mining companies will be developing these ASICs that will render CPU and GPU mining essentially useless, and centralizes mining quite a bit, because there's really only one company or two companies maybe that you can buy the mining equipment from, and that makes it a lot more decentralized, or a lot more centralized in nature. And whether these companies, or whether these foundations or projects say, hey, we're going to hard fork this, and we're going to render your mining equipment useless, or they figured out how to do this, and now we have to just take it like take our medicine. So interesting stuff for sure. So looking at some of these questions here, yeah, I meant FPGAs. I'm sorry. Yep, FPGAs. That is correct, Matthew. Mainframe 386. Good point there, man. So good point. There will come a point where no exchanges will carry anonymous cryptos like Monero in order to comply with regulation. I think that's something that a lot of people argue. I was listening to a podcast, Crypto Street Podcast. Not sure if any of you guys listen to that, but Crypto Street Podcast, and they have Crypto Bully, who's on Twitter. He's a lawyer in his day job, and he had a tweet recently or that he got a lot of flack for, basically saying like the first place that governments are going to go to crack down on cryptocurrency is likely going to be the privacy coins, because Bitcoin is really not anonymous whatsoever. There are companies out there like Chain Analysis that can basically track everything you do on the Bitcoin blockchain, and I think they're moving to that for a lot of these other projects, probably Ethereum and some of these other ones as well, where they're really able to track the nodes, track the wallets, things like that. And if you ever use something like Coinbase, they can link that back to you, unless you're really solid at Bitcoin washing. So that's definitely something to think about. And I believe that there is certainly a possibility that something like a Monero or something like a Zcash could be a very easy target for the government, because they are not, it's private by, Monero is really private by default. And it would make sense for them to say, hey, we don't want there to be any element of privacy here, and we want to have full control over everything that goes on, and we want to have visibility into everything that goes on. So you as an individual, you can't, or you as an exchange, we don't want you to list Monero. And if you do list Monero, we're going to go after you or something like that. That's certainly a possibility. The one thing I would say, though, too, is that depending upon where it might be traded, I guess there's a lot of like intricacies to that, because if there's one exchange, and it could be some underground exchange, or it could be some random exchange, but all it takes is for there to be one exchange for you to be able to, buy Bitcoin. Like, let's say you have CoinBase and somebody, they ban Monero at Bittrex, and they ban Monero at Binance, but there's one random crappy exchange somewhere where you can go and you could buy Monero, and that's, I don't know, out of the purview of the regulators or something like that, then as long as you can buy Bitcoin or Ethereum on Coinbase, you could send that somewhere. Once you get your money into the crypto ecosystem, it's kind of hard to control it. So that's also something to think about as well, I believe. So looking at some of these questions here, so I'm gonna take one more. I'm gonna take one more question here, and then I gotta get my stuff ready for. Gotta take a shower and all that good stuff for LendIt. I rolled out of bed, got ready for this video. So, so what is the meaning of OTC crypto trading? It's over the counter trading, essentially. So there was a really good article in the New York Times recently. I'll pull this up. I talked about it a little bit recently. Here we go. So this is a good article. Search New York Times OTC trading. But this is something that you definitely want to check out if you're not familiar. Basically, OTC trading is over the counter, like, but yes, like somebody said, Sam said, between two parties. So essentially, what that means and why you would do this is if you are a large, like, let's say, let's say right now I have $20 million and I want to buy $20 million worth of Bitcoin. I'm not going to go to GDAX and I'm not going to market buy $20 million of Bitcoin, because if I put a $20 million order on the books at GDAX, everybody else is going to see that and see, wait, why is somebody buying 20 million bucks of Bitcoin? I'm going to do something. Instead of doing that, I'm going to call up a number of different companies. So Circle, that just acquired Poloniex, is one. DRW Holdings, or DRW Holdings owns this company, Cumberland Mining, which is huge in the OTC space. Genesis Global Trading, which is owned by Digital Currency Group, is another one. And so these desks, so basically what happens is there's a trading desk in the middle that handles these OTC trades, and they will link up a buyer and a seller, and they will do that off the books. So it's not on GDEX, it's not on Genesis or anything, or it's not on Gemini, it's not on Binance or anything like that, but they will do it off the books so that there's no visibility necessarily into how much goes on there. And the interesting thing when you look at that, though, is that these companies are handling, in a lot of respects, $100 million of crypto trading a day. And their minimum orders are usually between like 75. You can see $75,000 and $250,000. So these aren't small orders, but these are what happens when people want to buy or sell Bitcoin and not have to deal with a slippage. Because if you put a large order on an order book like a GDAX or something else like that, you could definitely deal with some slippage. You could cause the price to move up pretty significantly, or cause the price to move down. So these folks will pay a premium and pay an additional fee to Circle or to Cumberland Mining and to some of these other companies, so that they don't have to deal with that. But definitely something worth checking out, because while a lot of people have seen the volume of, a lot of people have seen the volume in the crypto markets has dried up, the volume of OTC trading has skyrocketed. So that's something that also is discussed in this article, is while the volume on the public exchanges since December and January has taken a massive dip, the volume in the OTC markets is up quite a bit, which kind of indicates to me the smart money is moving into the space more and more and more, whether it's on the buy and sell side. But smart money is participating in the crypto markets more and more and more, while a lot of retail investors are leaving. And that gives me some positive signs moving forward as well. And I'm excited about that too. So definitely something to take a look into and to consider as well. But if you guys have enjoyed the video today, please hit me up with a like, thumbs up button. Would really, really appreciate that. And if you are new to the channel by any chance, hit that subscribe button, the notify bell, so that anytime I do go live in the future, you get those videos as quick as possible and get notified. But I will be heading over to the LendIt conference. If you're at the LendIt conference, Blockfin in San Francisco, let me know. Hit me up on Twitter or anything like that. Would love to grab a coffee, grab a beer with you guys, meet up. But outside of that, and I'll be live tweeting some of the things I'll see and everything like that. So really looking forward to that conference. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me this morning. I hope you have a fantastic day, night, wherever you might be at. Take it easy. Peace.